Geronimo. The name evokes images of a fierce Apache warrior, a symbol of defiance against impossible odds, and a relentless spirit that refused to be broken. Born into a world where his people faced relentless pressures from Mexico and the United States, Geronimo rose to lead the Chiricahua Apache through one of the most turbulent periods in Native American history. From his early years among the rugged landscapes of the American Southwest to his legendary battles and cunning escapes, Geronimo became a hero and a symbol of resistance. Despite a life marred by personal tragedy, he held fast to his commitment to his people and their way of life. His struggles against the U.S. Army, his resourcefulness in the Apache Wars, and his unwillingness to surrender made him an unforgettable figure. This video dives into the gripping story of Geronimo's life, exploring his journey from warrior to legend, his role in the Chiricahua Apache Wars, and his legacy as one of the last great Native American leaders. Geronimo, born Goyakla, meaning the one who yawns, came into the world around 1829 in what is now New Mexico. He was a member of the Bedonkohe band of the Chiricahua Apache, part of a larger group of Apache tribes with shared language and culture but divided into various bands. Growing up in the deserts and mountains of the American Southwest, Geronimo learned to survive in one of the harshest environments. Apache culture emphasized strength, endurance, and loyalty to family and tribe. These values, instilled in Geronimo from a young age, would define his actions throughout his life. In 1851, a tragedy struck that would forever alter his path. During a trading trip, Mexican soldiers attacked his camp, killing his mother, wife, and children. This horrific loss ignited a fierce desire for vengeance that drove Geronimo for the rest of his life. He became a warrior, devoting himself to avenging his loved ones and defending Apache land. His transformation from a young man of peace to a battle-hardened leader was fueled by this personal trauma, and it marked the beginning of his journey as one of the most feared and revered warriors of his time. The Apache had long clashed with Mexican forces over territory and survival. Tensions were heightened as both Apache and Mexican forces conducted raids across their territories. As a young warrior, Geronimo gained renown for his ability to lead raids and evade capture, targeting Mexican outposts in retaliation for attacks on his people. Among the Chiricahua Apache, Geronimo's name became synonymous with strength and courage. His fierce determination was fueled by both personal vengeance and a deep-seated belief in protecting his people from oppression. Mexican soldiers, witnessing his tenacity, allegedly began to call out Geronimo in fear during battles, a name that would endure across generations as a symbol of resistance. As Mexico struggled to maintain control over its borderlands, Apache raids became increasingly bold, led by Geronimo and other prominent leaders like Cochise. The Apache's mobility and knowledge of the desert terrain made them formidable opponents. They conducted their campaigns with speed and precision, leveraging their deep knowledge of the region's mountains and valleys to evade larger, better-equipped forces. Geronimo's reputation spread, and he quickly became a central figure in the Apache resistance. In 1848, following the Mexican-American War, the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo handed vast tracts of land to the United States, including territories traditionally inhabited by the Apache. This sudden influx of American settlers and military presence disrupted the fragile peace the Apache had with neighboring Mexican communities, and the conflicts escalated to new heights. Initially, Geronimo and the Apache viewed these new arrivals with caution. However, as American settlers encroached on their lands, tensions exploded. The Apache, like many indigenous tribes, found themselves fighting not only for territory, but for their survival. Geronimo was at the forefront of this resistance, leading raids on American settlements and ambushes on military encampments. He was a master of guerrilla warfare, using small, agile bands of warriors to strike and vanish into the unforgiving desert terrain. His tactics baffled U.S. forces, who were unfamiliar with the land and unprepared for such unconventional warfare. Geronimo's command of guerrilla tactics was legendary. He could lead his men across rugged mountains and deserts, eluding large forces with ease. One of his preferred strategies was to stage surprise attacks at night, using his knowledge of the terrain to slip in and out before his enemies could respond. His band moved with extraordinary stealth, able to cover vast distances quickly and survive on minimal resources. These attacks terrorized settlers and soldiers alike, who had no answer to his tactics. His relentless commitment to fighting for Apache land and freedom made him one of the most wanted men in America. As the Apache Wars escalated, the U.S. government committed significant military resources to contain Geronimo. Thousands of troops were deployed, along with Apache scouts who knew the land as well as Geronimo did. The government's relentless pursuit led to several high-stakes confrontations. In one instance, U.S. forces attempted to trap Geronimo and his band in the Sierra Madre Mountains, only for him to slip through their grasp time and time again. His ability to evade capture, even when surrounded, became legendary. American soldiers began to view Geronimo as almost superhuman, a phantom who could appear and disappear at will. The pressure from U.S. forces was unyielding, yet Geronimo's resolve remained unbroken. His refusal to surrender, despite the odds, made him an enduring symbol of Native American resistance. But by the mid-1880s, the Apache were facing increasingly desperate conditions. Their resources were dwindling, and relentless military campaigns took a toll on Geronimo and his followers. The once unshakable warrior began to realize that his people were being pushed to the brink of extinction. Determined to end Geronimo's defiance, the U.S. government launched a final campaign to capture him. Thousands of soldiers and Apache scouts pursued him across the border into Mexico, where he continued to evade capture. Geronimo's band, however, was exhausted. They had spent years on the run, constantly hunted, and supplies were running low. His people were worn down by the constant threat of violence and the harsh conditions of life on the run. In 1886, under mounting pressure and with few options remaining, Geronimo agreed to negotiate his surrender. General Nelson Miles, a seasoned U.S. military commander, promised Geronimo and his followers safe passage and a return to their lands after a period of confinement. Exhausted and outnumbered, Geronimo finally surrendered, bringing an end to the Apache Wars. The terms of Geronimo's surrender, however, were quickly broken. Instead of being allowed to return to their homeland, Geronimo and his people were treated as prisoners of war. They were shipped first to Florida, then to Alabama, and finally to Fort Sill in Oklahoma, far from their ancestral lands. Geronimo had laid down his arms in hopes of sparing his people further suffering, but the betrayal of these promises underscored the grim reality of U.S. treatment toward Native Americans. Despite his surrender, he would remain a prisoner of war for the rest of his life. Geronimo's life as a prisoner was marked by hardship and a growing public fascination with the Indian warrior. Held far from his homeland, he faced an uncertain future. Yet, even in captivity, Geronimo's resilience and charisma made him an icon. He became a public figure, invited to participate in fairs and exhibitions, including a notable appearance at the 1904 World's Fair in St. Louis and a spot in President Theodore Roosevelt's inaugural parade in 1905. While these appearances allowed Geronimo to earn money, they were also bittersweet. His participation in these events, while bringing awareness to the Apache's plight, underscored his captive status. He was no longer the free warrior who had roamed the mountains of the Southwest, but a man trapped by history's injustices. Despite his captivity, Geronimo remained proud of his heritage, though he expressed regret that his people's freedom had come at such a cost. Geronimo passed away on February 17, 1909, at Fort Sill, Oklahoma. His death marked the end of an era, a time when the Native American tribes fiercely defended their lands and ways of life. Geronimo's legacy, however, endures. He remains a powerful symbol of resilience, a figure who, despite overwhelming odds, never surrendered his spirit. For the Apache, his life serves as a testament to the courage and tenacity of their ancestors. Geronimo's story is more than just the tale of a man who fought against the U.S. military. It's the story of an entire people struggling to preserve their culture, land, and way of life against the forces of colonization. From the tragic loss of his family to his final surrender, Geronimo's life is a portrait of a man driven by a fierce love for his people and a deep-seated desire for justice. His tactics and escapes remain legendary, and his name is forever etched into American history. Geronimo's journey from warrior to captive reflects the broader tragedy experienced by indigenous peoples across the United States, yet his spirit of resistance lives on. Today, his story continues to inspire Native American communities and others who value freedom and self-determination. The legacy of Geronimo is a reminder that even in the face of overwhelming odds, the human spirit's desire for freedom and dignity can never be fully extinguished.